everyone, welcome back to our series. We're going to continue with our third lesson of Italian. So let's begin. Now, last time we stopped after doing the conjugation of essere, which I hope you've learned, memorized, hopefully. If not, that's okay, there's always time, but I mean, it's kind of like really, really important that you do this, memorize it, commit it to your memory as soon as you can, because the more you delay, the more you'll struggle. Because essere, just like in English, we have is, right? You use that so often it's almost impossible to think of creating a sentence without is, right? So make sure you memorize this. I know it looks a little bit strange because how do you go from essere to sono, sei, siamo, siete, sono? But that's just something you have to deal with. One of the weird things about any kind of language, really tends to be conjugation. Of course, most of the time, thankfully, you will see that most verbs tend to be regular. This is one of those irregular verbs. You have that in English as well, so that's not, and you have that in other languages too, so it's not really something all too strange. Right, the next thing you have to do is ricostruisci i dialoghi, reconstruct the dialogues. Completa i dialoghi con le frasi A, B o C. Complete the dialogues with the phrases A, B, or C. And what are these phrases? You got three options essentially. The first one says C. E lei è italiana? B. Io sono italiana. E tu? C. Sei svizzera? So you've got three options. Now let's look at our blanks. And of course, the first one here, you have a blank, and then you have no, sono austriaca. So what do you think would fit? See? And then saying no, that doesn't make any sense. Io sono italiana and then saying no, sono austriaca, that doesn't make sense. You can't be confused about your identity. Sei sincera? No, sono austriaca. Now that makes sense, doesn't it? Because there's the question and then there's a yes or no thing. So if you get something like this in the exam, which is a possibility, keep in mind that there's some logic you can always apply. So if you have a question, then if you have a blank, like let's say let's say if ci was not sei svizzera, if ci was no, sono austriaca, if that was ci, and instead of number one with the blank, you had one, sei svizzera, then you'd know, okay, well, if it's a question, then the answer has to be yes or no, something like that, right? So you can use the reverse logic of that as well. So the first one that matches is this one. Say, Svizzera, are you Swiss? Are you a Swiss woman? Because the A ending. You'll notice, in fact, that there's a small table right here. Leggi, read. Alla fine, at the end, puoi aggiungere, you can add, il nome del tuo paese, the name of your country, e della tua nazionalità, and of your nationality. So you have a couple of countries, Italia, Germania, Austria, Svizzera, Spagna, Inghilterra, Irlanda, Portogallo, Francia. And then you have the nationality, which will depend, of course, on gender. So here, for example, now there are some of these. You'll notice, for example, you've got inglese. Inglese is just inglese. There's no masculine or feminine form. Similarly, irlandese, portoghese, francese, they're the same. So there's no masculine or feminine forms. But for a lot of other countries, you'll see, for example, italiano, italiana, tedesco, tedesca, austriaco, austriaca, svizzero, svizzera, spagnolo, spagnola. So that's very easy to remember. You don't actually have to, it's not like there are some languages where the endings will give you just a bit of a clue. Like you have in German, you do have, it's kind of like, sorry, my throat is so bad today. You do have words where there are some endings that can give you an idea of the gender of the word, but often it can feel random, but it's not that way in Italian. So it's a lot simpler, so you should be thanking your lucky stars. Okay, well, so the first one is sei sincera. No, sono austriaca. Then you've got lei è francese. Is she French? And then, well, we've done C. Well, G, not C. So, what could the answer to that be? That's a question. So, if you have a question, normally questions are responded to with yes or no. And so you do have C. Lei è italiana. And so, okay, here lei is used as not for she, asking if she is French, but rather you, polite you. You have informal you, which is tu, and you have polite you, which is lei. But you also have she or her, which is also lei, and you have lui, which is he or him. So, yeah, okay, well, lei è francese. You know, you meet a stranger, and of course, you want to be polite, so you use lei. You don't just start using tu with strangers. So, lei è francese? Are you French? Uh, and the person says, what could they say? Io sono italiana. E tu? It could, you might think, well, I mean, this person is responding and they're saying, I'm Italian. How about you? But look at the mismatch. Number two starts with lei, the formal you. And so the responder should also be using the formal version, not the informal one. You don't just switch like that from formal to informal without first at least, saying, yeah, we can use two forms. So, I mean, it doesn't work that way where you just randomly decide, okay, now I'm going to use two. It doesn't work like that. Especially if there's a significant age gap between the two people, or if there's some kind of like hierarchy gap, like you have, an employee and you've got a manager, supervisor, or something like that. So, what matches best would be C. Lei è italiana. Why? For two reasons. First, you have a question, so you have a response to that in terms of yes or no. And then, of course, you have lei, and this person is also using lei. They're both being polite, they're both being, formal. Okay, let me just get some water. Okay, so here we've got C, and let me just set because it's really important that you have that accent over I. So let me just find out where it exists on my keyboard. There we go, there we go. Okay, sì, sì. E lei è italiana. There we go. And of course, naturally, then the last one, the response is io sono tedesco. And well, the only one that we're left with is io sono italiana. E tu? Because that's the question. Io sono italiana. I'm Italian, a woman. And you? And of course, here they're using the informal form. So I will write that over here. E tu? Io sono tedesco. There we go, right? You should be able to, at this point, introduce yourself. Mi chiamo, your name. And you should be able to say where you're from, your nationality. And you should be able to ask other people the same thing. So what you can do is we have set up a Discord. You can join. The link should be in the description. So you can probably find study partners there. You can ask each other questions. There's a voice lounge as well. So that's a great way to, interact with people. Of course, you may also have like friends in real life that you can practice with, or you can just stand in front of a mirror and practice with yourself. Either way, it's all good. It's equally useful, I'd say. But of course, having a person with you, that's going to make things a lot more fun. Okay, then we go on to the next thing. With this one, I already explained you have a list of countries. Well, it's a small list. You can, in fact, you should. They say right there in the instructions at the end. So here, you can add the name of your country. Puoi aggiungere il nome del tuo paese e della tua nazionalità. So, the name of your country, find out, and this is a great website, by the way, dict.cc. So you can go there and you can find pretty much any kind of word. The great thing is, let's say, for example, you put in some kind of word, like, I don't know, tablecloth. Why did tablecloth come to mind? No idea. So you put that word in and then you find out, okay, what is this word in Italian? Tovaglia. And you also find out the gender right here. So that's really useful. And sometimes, a word might have multiple meanings in English or even in Italian. So you get to see like what's the difference between all these different types of words. So that's super helpful. This is a great website for a dictionary. I don't think you need any other dictionary. At least not for the first couple of levels. I mean, I am doing B2. I still use dict.cc. A lot of people will have their own, preferred dictionaries online, but I find this is the best one. Okay, so we go back. Now we've got to ole. So the informal you or the formal you. Ascolta e sei dialoghi. Listen to the 6 dialogues. E segna con una X and, a sign with an X. Se le persone si danno del tu o del lei. If the people are using the informal you or the formal you. So we're going to listen and I'm going to play this. Let me find out traccia which track number this is. This should be traccia 8. Okay, so let's pick traccia 8. I'm gonna mute myself so you don't hear it twice. And as usual, we'll play it twice. What we'll do is we'll play it first. I want you to mark in your textbooks. And then when we listen to it the second time, we'll do it together. Yeah, okay, let's begin.
Traccia 8. 1.
Buongiorno, signora.
Oh, buongiorno. 2.
Come ti chiami?
Ornella, e tu?
Federico.
3. Ciao Roberto.
Oh, ciao, come va?
4.
Lei è inglese o americano?
Io? Americano.
5. Di dove sei?
Di Milano e tu?
Di Brescia. 6. Lei è il signor Frizzi?
Sì, e lei è la signora Costanzo?
Sì, piacere.
Piacere.
Okay, one thing that you'll notice is some dialogues tend to be normal in terms of pace and speed, and sometimes they speak quickly. Now, the thing is, though, that Italians do tend to speak a bit quickly, so you will have to, it's a good idea at this point to kind of train your ear and get used to it, because otherwise in the exam you'll have a tough time. And I have this, so when I was doing my A1, I had this book of listening exercises, which were really great. And I did almost the entire book, and I had a very easy time with the listening part of my exam. So the more you listen, and you'll get used to it because it's not like, again, it's like I said, it's fairly easy if you just kind of acclimatize your ear to it. Yeah, it might seem like, okay, we're just like doing chapter 1. Why are they speaking so quickly? But this is a good thing because the problem with a lot of course books, programs, and so on is they don't really, the kind of listening exercises that you do, I've observed in many courses, they tend to be kind of unrealistic. The speakers speak too slowly. It doesn't really reflect real life use of the language. And so you have these types of problems. So the thing is, once you're done with Nuovo Espresso uno, due, tre, etc., you'll be able to actually just pick, random stuff on YouTube by Italians and understand what they're saying. And I mean, like actual content, not for learners, just the stuff that native speakers, would listen to and watch. So that's good. Don't worry if you're not getting it. It's okay. You can listen to it 10 times if you need to. No one's judging you right now. So don't worry if you're like, oh, they're speaking so quickly, I didn't catch that. That's okay because you're learning. So it's okay to be frustrated and, I don't get it. That's normal because your brain is still working things out. Okay, so we'll listen to it once more and now we're going to mark together.
Traccia 8. 1.
Buongiorno, signora.
Oh, buongiorno. 2.
Come ti chiami?
Ornella, e tu?
Federico.
3. Ciao Roberto.
Oh, ciao, come va?
4.
Lei è inglese o americano?
Io? Americano.
5. Di dove sei?
Di Milano, e tu?
Di Brescia. 6. Lei è il signor Frizzi?
Sì, e lei è la signora Costanzo?
Sì, piacere.
Piacere.
So one thing that you'll notice is in the first one, they don't actually say to or lei, but he says signora. And so signor, signora, doctor, dottore, etc. When you hear these types of terms, you know that the relationship between these two people is rather formal in nature. They're not friendly, they're not peers, they're not the same age group. So that gives you a clue that these people would use lei. For the rest, it was fairly easy because you could hear tu or lei. So that one was fairly simple. But don't worry if you didn't catch it right the first time. That's normal. You're still learning. So don't be frustrated. Just keep doing it. That's okay. Even if you got all of them wrong, that's fine. You can play it once again and like listen, where did this person say to? Where did they say lay? And you have the tracks. If you don't have the tracks, just leave a comment down below and I'll share the link where you can get it officially and for free. Okay, then we have our next exercise. Lei è francese. A, so that's person A. This is kind of a partner activity, so let's see if we can manage this. A sceglie una città dal primo gruppo. A chooses one city from this group. Parigi, Roma, Londra, Berlino. You could even add any others if you would like to. B dal secondo. So student B or your partner chooses one city from below. Preparate un dialogo secondo il modello. You have this modello right here. Prima di cominciare, before you begin, potete scrivere i nomi di altre città. Before you begin, you can write names of other cities to practice with. So what are we practicing? What's the goal here? Like I said, now you should be able to do two things. Introduce yourself, just like say what your name is, and say where you're from. That's one thing you should be able to do. And you should be able to ask somebody else, what's their name? Where do they come from? So that's the second thing that you need to be able to do at this point. Just two things. And it's really important to do things step by step. Just take baby steps, right? Because you don't want to, I know you want to do a lot of things, right? You're like, it's interesting, it's fascinating to learn a language. You want to be able to say more things, but make sure that your foundation is solid, it's strong, because that's what you're building on for the future. Okay, so you have this table right here. Let's say if you pretend that you don't know your partner, if they're somebody much older, if they're, in a position higher than you, then you would use lei. Yeah, lei è, okay, you have, for example, Parigi. Somebody who lives in Parigi, what would they be? French. Well, most likely, not always necessary, but generally, you could ask, okay, di dove? You could ask di dove sei, depending, of course, on whether you want to role play a formal scenario or an informal scenario. So you should, of course, that's the third thing. You should also be able to know when to use lei or tu. I think it's fairly simple. Most languages that you speak or, whatever your mother tongue is, it probably also already has that type of distinction. So it shouldn't be that big of a deal. I think it's only English where we don't have that. It's a very egalitarian language in a way. So that's partner work. You could do that. we can't do it right here because we don't have a partner. It's just me. If I had maybe like a guest or something, which I think we could potentially do. I'm thinking of, like I said, we've, set up a Discord, so we could potentially do things like that for the future. But right now, let's just wait for a couple more people to sign up on our Discord. So the next thing we're going to do is numbers. By the end of the lesson, you'll also be able to say where you live and, tell the other person your telephone number. So we've got numeri. Ascolta, listen, and ripeti. Listen and repeat. So I'll play the track twice as usual. You could, of course, repeat that. I would say repeat as many times as necessary because you want to repeat after the person. You have all these numbers from 1 to 20. So let's listen to traccia 9, track 9. Listen, we have numbers from 0 to 20. And what I'll do is I'll type them out as we listen to them.
Traccia 9.
0,
1,
2,
3,
4,
5,
6,
7,
8,
9,
10,
11,
12,
13,
14,
15,
16,
17,
18,
19,
20,
Traccia 9.
0,
1,
2,
3,
4,
5,
6,
7,
8,
9,
10,
11,
12,
13,
14,
15,
16,
17,
18,
19,
20.
And there you go. So that's your numbers from 0 to 20, just the basics. And the other numbers, by the way, are also fairly easy. So it's not like French, where it's kind of a mess. So it's not like that. Thankfully, you don't have to worry about that. But just make sure to, again, listen as often as you can. I would say, if you just like right now, if you listen to it twice, then maybe every day, if you just listen to it like 5 times, just the numbers. But make sure you repeat after the person, otherwise, you'll forget how it's pronounced. I mean, it's fairly simple, but still, just make sure to do it. Yeah. Now, the question is, qual è il suo numero di telefono? What's your telephone number? What's your cell phone number? Ascolta e completa i dialoghi con I numeri. So you've got a few dialogues here. We're going to listen again, not listening exercise, very similar to what you might find in your exam. Somebody giving directions or, telling somebody their telephone number. Oh, and they might say, oh, 8, 9, oh, scusa, 9, 8. So that kind of thing is also possible. Just watch out for those types of things. Well, in the exam, of course, right now it's going to be very straightforward because it's just chapter 1. Okay, qual è il suo numero di telefono? We're going to listen to this track. Let me just check if it's traccia 10. Looks like it is. Okay, great, traccia 10. Right. Then we also have a new thing coming up, but let's deal with that later. Right now, we're just going to focus on traccia 10. So I'm going to play traccia 10. Meanwhile, I'll just mute myself so you don't hear it twice.
Traccia 10.
Qual è il suo indirizzo?
Via Garibaldi 16
E il suo numero di telefono?
06 34 26 795. Però ho anche il cellulare 340 76 21 782.
Come, scusi?
340 76 21 782. Traccia 10.
Qual è il suo indirizzo?
Via Garibaldi 16
E il suo numero di telefono?
06 34 26 795. Però ho anche il cellulare 340 76 21 782.
Come, scusi?
340 76 21 782. Traccia 10.
Qual è il suo indirizzo?
Via Garibaldi 16
E il suo numero di telefono?
06 34 26 795. Però ho anche il cellulare 340 76 21 782.
Come, scusi?
340 76 21 782.
Okay, so you might have to listen to it a couple of times. If you do, that's okay. Again, this is a fairly good speed. They're not, dumbing things down, which I like. If you were doing any other course or any other course book, they would be speaking very slow. They might be saying, for example, something like, però anche il cellulare 340 76 21 782. They might do that kind of thing. And that's great because, you think, wow, I'm getting everything, but it doesn't challenge you. And if it doesn't challenge you, it's not really challenging your brain. It's not really triggering your memory. So it feels good that, oh, I got it, I could understand. But it doesn't help you because, again, that's a very, very, very slow speed. Nobody speaks like that. Of course, unless they're teachers or, for a course book or something of that sort. So, yeah, don't worry, because I remember when I was doing A1, I thought, my God, they speak quickly. I had to listen to this a couple times before I got all the numbers, and I'd keep getting confused between say and sette. I'd keep getting the two of those confused, but, you'll get it with time. You just give it a couple days, and you'll be good as gold. Right, so the next one that I wanted to introduce was another conjugation, avere. Now, avere also looks kind of funny because if you've got avere and then it changes again, let's throw in an entire table over here. So you've got the usual suspects, io, tu, lei, or, the same thing, you've got lei, lui. Same conjugation for both of them. Got noi, voi, and loro. Whoops. And if you hear that in the background, it's raining quite heavily. So mi scusa. Okay, so avere becomes not ho. Okay, that's one thing that we hear a lot of people say ho. And, they really pronounce the H. But in French and Italian, you don't pronounce the H. You just don't. It's O. And also, of course, I don't know if I've told you this before, but the pronouns io, tu, lei, noi, voi, loro, we don't actually use them in Italian unless you want to emphasize that, I did this thing, not, somebody else, or he said something and not someone else. So they're kind of redundant in Italian, pointless in Italian, these pronouns. Why? Because the conjugation already tells you who said or who did something. So it's kind of like the pronoun is kind of like baked into the conjugation of the verb. It's very cool. And so in the beginning, I'd always use the pronouns because, again, that's what you do in every other language. And then, I'd keep getting corrected. And that's how I remember, okay, the pronouns really, because it's a bit strange, in the beginning. We're not used to speaking without pronouns, at least, in English and many other languages, especially in German, where my kind of like major linguistic background is from. So that's, it was strange for me at first. It took me quite a couple of weeks to get used to this way of doing things. So we've got, as I was saying, yes, you've got o, which is, it's not ho, there's no H sound. Then we've got to I, not hi, but I. So the H is there just for show. It doesn't have any purpose. It really doesn't have any purpose. It's there for show. Maybe in like one more century, they'll finally get rid of it. So you've got o, I, a, and then abbiamo, right? So abbiamo doesn't have an H, thankfully. Then you've got voi again, avere, doesn't have an H. And then you've got loro, hanno. Again, this one has an H. Hanno, not hanno. So there's no ho, hi, ha, hanno, none of that. It's o, I, a, abbiamo, avete, hanno. And of course, just like yesterday, this one looks really strange as heck because what's going on? How does avere turn into o, I, a, abbiamo, avete, hanno? That doesn't make any sense. But that's because these are irregular verbs, both avere and essere, to have and to be, kind of just like in English, to be honest, right? It's not too different. It's not too different. At least in most other languages, it's kind of the same thing. So this one, unfortunately, you just have to memorize it. But the great thing is, it's simple. It's not really that difficult. And you'll see it all the time. So it kind of gets reinforced into your memory. So yeah, make sure to learn this as well. And of course, like I said from the last time, you also have essere. So essere e avere, extremely important. You have to have them down because we use them all the time. And you have a little table over here that helps you. Con il lei, you have some phrases that you can use, right? Qual è il suo, not tuo, because tuo would be informal, right? So if you address a friend, then you would say, qual è il tuo numero di telefono? Oppure, or, sometimes people would say o for or, sometimes people would say oppure. It's like, you can use whatever you like. So, and scusa is casual, informal. Scusi is more formal. I said mi scusa a while ago, didn't I? Because again, we have this, you and me, we have an informal relationship. So we're not like professor and, whatever else or anything like that. Okay, so that's that. And then you have a couple other things. Che numero è? Scrivi nel riquadro a sinistra 7 numeri a piacere da 0 a 20. So write down any 7 numbers that you like from 0 to 20. And then your companion will, your friend, companion, classmate, partner, whatever. And then you say those numbers out loud to your partner, and they are going to write those down. And you're going to check if they got it right or wrong. So the numbers, spelling, things like that. This is something you could do for yourself. I mean, you just listen to the audio. I think it's traccia 9 o 10, 9 or 10. And you listen to that, you write it down. Check if it's right or wrong. You just, you can scroll, I think, maybe like a couple minutes past this video, and, you could do it yourself. You don't need a partner. It's fun with a partner, but yeah. And finally, we have the next one. Well, this is probably the last exercise, yes. Primo incontro, first meeting. Gli studenti lavoreranno a gruppi. students work in a group. So this is a group exercise. Again, unfortunately, we won't be able to do this, but I hope at some point in the future, once we have enough Discord members, we're going to be able to arrange things like this so it's a lot more fun and a lot more useful for you. Ogni studente scrive su un foglio dei dati immaginari. You write down random things, random names, name, surname, where do you come from, telephone number, and then you ask questions to each other. Oh, where do you come from? What's your telephone number? What's your address? Right? So this is again just exercising the things that we've learned. So once again, a quick recap of what we've done. Avere e essere conjugations, those are very important. And you should be able to introduce yourself with your name, where do you come from, where do you live, just the street, Via Garibaldi, Venti, etc. Something simple like that. Your city, and what else? You've got your name, you've got your address. Oh yes, telephone number, and where do you come from? Which country do you come from? So that thing, you should be able to do that, and you should be able to ask the other person the same, for the same information. And the other thing that we've also looked at is tu or lei. So that's another thing to figure out, but that's fairly straightforward. With friends and family, it's usually tu, unless you have a much older family member. It depends on the relationship, because some people will use tu, some people will use lei. So, but yeah, that's not something overly complicated, I don't think. And that ends this lesson. However, in the book, you have some really, really good, useful stuff. So at the end, so I'll tell you the page number. This is page 13. You have comunicazione e grammatica. And that kind of just gives you a nice quick recap of all the things, all the topics that we've done for communication and grammar. Just a couple of things that we've done. You have essere, avere, chiamarsi, mi chiamo, ti chiami, si chiama. You have that we've done. And you have these, nationalities that we've done. You've got some titles, dottore, professore, signore. You also have di plus your city. So sono di Parigi, sono di Roma, etc. And, asking questions. Come ti chiami? Dove sei? And that's that. So we've also... So that's, a little nice overview of that. And then you have this really fun video course, which you 100% need to do. It's just watching videos and then answering questions over here. But the videos are really good. They're really fun to watch. Interesting, not boring. Trust me on that. It's not like a usual course book where you get bored. But this is good. And it's really important because, again, it's like, daily meetings, conversations, things like that. So it's fun. It's you must do the video course, okay? It's like 2 or 3 pages of questions. Yeah, 2 pages of questions. You watch the videos first. They're on the Alma Edizioni website. I'll make sure to add the link in the description so you can catch that. It's free, by the way, so again, you have to do it, okay? Even though you don't have videos in an exam, but again, this allows you to see how do people express themselves, and it's fun. It's, of course, video is a lot more interactive compared to just audio. And then you also have another one page. It's called Caffè Culturale. And there's a couple things with how to tell the time, how Italians greet each other. Ciao, arrivederci, buonanotte, a presto, a domani, buona giornata. Things like that. Just a couple things. It's just 1 page, but it's nice. So don't skip that, okay? Do it 100%. But it's just maybe 1 exercise or so. So it's not a lot of things. So yeah, that is... just a second. Can you still... Yeah, I'm still recording. Okay. So yeah, that brings us to the end of lesson 1. And we are going to be continuing onward with lesson 2 in the next video, which should be up in a couple days, hopefully. So I'll see you then. A presto!